So I was like, holy shit, maybe it's my implants. Like, what the fuck? And it was the first time I even thought that it could be my implants, like, which is ridiculous because it's like plastic just chilling in my body. And I think that couldn't possibly, weigh down my immune system and mess with some things.
Welcome to What I Love About Sex, where some incredible guests and I, Steph Kanowski, will be bringing you the tools for improving your sex life with topics such as sex issues with your partner, sexual self-confidence, premature ejaculation, sexual shame, masturbation, sharing your fetishes, orgasmic pleasure, and more. Sex is still so taboo, and I personally believe that by improving our understanding and communication skills around sex, we can enhance our own self-pleasure as well as deepening our long-term romantic relationships. So listen in, try to stay open-minded, and let's get started.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode on the What I Love About Sex podcast. So today, this weekend, I have promised you the episode of my breast implant illness experience and journey. So I want to share that because I do believe it's important to spread awareness around this and for you to just understand what kinds of things women go through. I think it's important, especially if your woman has implants and if she's showing any of these symptoms. Maybe you can encourage her. I encourage you to encourage her to get them removed or to at least have a conversation about the possibility and to weigh out other options first, if that's easiest. But this will be a very personal episode. If you don't care about my life, which is totally cool. If you don't care about learning about breast implant illness, you could just skip this episode. But this whole episode is going to be about my experience with BII or breast implant illness. So it started with a feeling of pelvic pain in October of 2022. And it was very obvious. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I've never had this type of pain. It's not in the area where you have period cramps. It was much lower and it was only on one side. So I was like, maybe I have a cyst that like ruptured or something because that happens and it's very, very painful. So it made sense to me. And I was like, that's probably what it is. But you can't really do much for that. So I just kind of let it go and took some pain meds, like acetaminophen and ibuprofen, nothing crazy. And I was just treating it like this will go away. This is just like weird and random. So it turned out that like every night from then I had to use a heating pad like during the day and every night falling asleep because the pain was so unavoidable, like unmanageable, like maybe not unmanageable. It was manageable with the heating pad. But it felt as though it just felt weird to just constantly be in pain. And I was like, okay, this is weird. It's been like a month and a half of this pain basically being here every day. And this is just weird. Let me get checked. So I went to the gynecologist. They tested me. They did every ultrasound you could do, transvaginal, transabdominal, can't think of the other one right now, but they were like, no, there's no cyst ruptured and everything looks fine. And yeah, there's nothing here. So I was like, okay, how do you explain this pain? Because it's every day and it's kind of getting worse. And what do I do? And they're like, it should just go away. Like, there's nothing wrong. And my gut was like, there's something wrong. This is fucking weird. You've always been a healthy person. You've never had any issues like this. Like, this is different. Something is not right. And I went to another doctor, like a general practitioner, and another gynecologist, right, to get a second opinion. And they also took ultrasounds and they're like, no, you're fine. Like everything looks great. So I feel like, okay, am I going crazy? Is this pain in my head? Like, am I just really stressed out? I don't know, but I'm just going to keep taking things for the pain, which, by the way, didn't do much. Like ibuprofen and acetaminophen would not relieve the pain, like hardly. It would have the slightest impact. So I was like, this is weird, because usually if I have a headache and I take something, it goes away. So this is where I had this understanding of like, okay, I get chronic pain. Like it's pain that's kind of, you can't really manage it. Like it's there. There's nothing that really fully helps it. There's just things to, I guess there are things to help manage it, but nothing fully helps it go away. So I was like, all right, let me do some research. And I came across endometriosis and I was like, okay, this might be it, but yeah, I'm not sure. And maybe I should do some like pelvic exercises. So I just did some like pelvic stretching and whatever, and that actually brought some relief. So I was like, okay. And then there was a month where I didn't feel anything, and that was around January. And then February of 2023 comes, and I remember being at Andrew's house in Austin. This is when he was first living in Austin. And I for the whole trip, because we would visit each other for like a year every month. Either he would fly to New York or I would fly to Austin like every month, so that we did a long distance thing for about a year. And so I'm there and we're actually helping him pack to move in with me in New York. This is when we're like, all right, let's take our relationship to the next level. You come to New York, finish my lease with me, yada, yada. So I'm at his place for like 10 days and I'm noticing that I'm just so tired. And I'm like sleeping in his bed, like during the day, like taking naps. And then I'm in bed really early. And he's like, are you okay? And I was like, maybe I'm pregnant. And then we went and got a test and I really thought I was pregnant because at this point I was nauseous and I was tired and I had this pelvic pain. So I'm like, this, like something's wrong. And, you know, maybe I am pregnant. So we get the test, my heart's pounding because at this point I'm like, I have to be pregnant. Like maybe this is probably it. And it's negative. So not pregnant. And he orders a pizza, our favorite pizza. And this is one of the last nights, it was one of the nights we were there. So I eat some pizza and within like 10 minutes, I'm so nauseous of eating the pizza. And pizza's my favorite thing. And I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, maybe this is just a one-time thing. Like I'm fine. And whenever I would eat really healthy things, I was able to be okay and not feel so bad. But if I ate pizza or if I ate like a snack, like a junk food type snack, or if I had alcohol, I would notice getting sick, like physically sick. And I'm like, whoa, like to the point where I was like bloating, my stomach would stick out and I was nauseous and I was exhausted. And I'm like, babe, something's wrong. Then even having sex, I would have some vaginal issues. So like my pH was off vaginally, like it would smell weird. And then I realized I had vaginal bacteria. Damn it, I forget the name and I don't want to say it wrong. But basically just like this thing where you have to put like you have to put pills up your vagina to clear it and then it goes away. And some women experience it a lot. Let me look it up because it's actually important and you might notice your woman has it. Bacterial vaginosis. Okay. Yeah, so that's what it was. Bacterial vaginosis, which leaves like a smell and a discomfort that comes with sex. It's not an STI. It just has to do when your hormones are off, and I don't know the full science, but do your research. I honestly forget. I used to know everything about it when I had it. And then that cleared up and I was like, okay, but all these other problems are still here. And now Andrew's moving in with me. So I start getting a little anxious, right? And I'm at this point where my body is just not working right. Like something is clearly wrong. I'm having all these random symptoms, and I'm just like, informing Andrew of everything. And he's like, it's probably just relax. Like just everything will be fine. But yeah, it was weird. And then he moves in with me in March 2023, and about 20 more symptoms hit me all at once. And I was keeping track of the symptoms because I felt like I was going insane. Like, guys, I thought I was losing my mind because I'm like, how are all of these things that have to do with different systems within my body happening at the same time? Like, this doesn't make sense. And, I saw another doctor and got some blood work done. Everything's fine. Like, I'm totally fine. No one has anything to tell me that's like, yeah, like, oh, do this and you'll be okay. And so at this point, these symptoms range from ringing in my ears, like a lot, like at least daily, I just have like this ringing, eye blurriness, where especially in the morning, I would have blurry eyes, blurry vision, lymph node swelling, and left ear pain. My left ear would just hurt like 5 days out of the week. And just, I had nothing wrong. There was no ear infection or anything. Dry, flaky scalp and rashes, which now has turned into eczema, which I still have, surrounding my face. But it was really bad on my scalp. And even my hair salon guy, who I was going to at the time in New York, Fabio, shout out to Fabio, he's amazing and his people are amazing. He was like, I don't know like what to tell you. Cause I was like, it's your shampoo that you gave me. It has to be. And he was like, no, like this is like the most calming, ingredients shampoo we have. Like do you want to talk to the owner? And he put me on the phone with the owner of this fancy shampoo that's like just amazing quality. And I was like, well, my scalp is like flaring the fuck up. And like the chunks of my scalp were like coming off. Like it was disgusting. Like I would brush a comb through my hair and like it would just be like a layer of skin from my scalp that would come out, like a legit layer of scalp. And then underneath, like as I brushed, it would be like inflamed and red and painful because I'm like, I felt like I was brushing off my fucking head. And I'm like, what the fuck? So then there's like all these flakes in my hair that were never happening. Then I'm losing all this hair. I go back to him and he's telling me like I have a lot of hair loss. And he was like, there's a lot of things that can contribute to this. Like, are you stressed? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking stressed because my body's shutting down. So like I would pull out chunks of hair. It got to a point where I couldn't shower without it taking like 20 minutes long because the water would run and my hair would stick to my entire body. So I would be constantly just pulling hair off my body in every direction. And it was so depressing. Like it got to the point where I was depressed to shower and I was avoiding washing my hair because it was so depressing to see how much hair was falling off. It's falling out. And then I had body rashes. These body rashes would come from like me just having an itch and I would scratch and then I would look and my whole stomach would be like red and it looked like someone was like clawing at me. And I just simply itched a scratch or scratched an itch. And I was like, what? And then it would happen in the shower, especially with warm water. And every time I shower, and this still kind of happens, every single time when the warm water hits my stomach especially, it gets very red and this rash appears. And then it within 30 seconds, it's gone. But it's like this big bright rash. And I'm like, okay. Then I had chronic fatigue. This was the fucking worst. This is probably one of the worst because it's like, once again, you can't do anything for it. Caffeine does not help. It's just you're exhausted every day and it doesn't seem to be that there's a reason for the exhaustion. So this fatigue kept me from keeping up with work. It made me really limit the amount of clients I was able to take on because I was just so tired. Like not even tired, like exhausted. Like I felt like like my body was just a pile of mush and I just didn't have any mental energy and I just felt like I had to sleep. But even when I slept, it wasn't like I woke up feeling vibrant and energized. I was still just like managing through the day. So anxiety is getting higher at this point, of course. I have a history of anxiety, so that hasn't helped. But I'm just like, okay, I'll just finish the symptoms. Sound sensitivity, I couldn't be in certain environments because they were too noisy. And it was places that I was always able to go. It was impossible for me to be at a concert and be even in the middle of the crowd. Like it was impossible. Like I got like annoyed or not even like very irritated by sound. Like it put me in a very negative mood if something was too loud, which was just weird. Migraines, which would come very frequently, was another one. Depression. And this is the month of March was when I experienced depression. It was this feeling of numbness and just laying in bed most of the day and feeling a little hopeless and just like, I don't know what the fuck to do because my body is just shutting down. And me really believing that. And, I was trying so hard to stay positive because me, I try to look for what can I be grateful for? What can I focus on? And it just felt at that time like so impossible. For the first time in my life, it felt impossible to go through because I'm seeing all these physical changes all at once. So it's like, how can I ignore all of this? Like, it's not like it's in my head. Like this stuff is all happening. So there was definitely just like a point where I got numb and I was like, I don't care about anything, type feeling. I'm like, I don't care if I'm in bed. I don't care if whatever. Like I'm probably going to die. Like I literally had thoughts of like, I think I'm dying. Like my body is slowly shutting down. Then I get to the point of bloating. Oh my God, this is one of the worst too. Bloating on a daily basis. And I would eat. I never knew what would bloat me. Some things would be very healthy for me, like salmon, and my stomach would stick out and I'd be in pain. And I would literally look pregnant. Like there were a few times where I looked pregnant and I didn't fit in my pants and I couldn't close them or pull them up because it was painful to even wear pants because of the pressure it was putting on my extended stomach. So I'm like, all right, my gut is obviously fucked up. Like this is weird. I remember Andrew and I went to this WeWork in New York City one morning, and on the way we got a baguette and I don't know, something else like fruit. And we brought it to the WeWork and I took a couple bites of the baguette and my stomach started rumbling like crazy. And then I was like, I need a bathroom, like fuck. And so I had to run up and get a bathroom and I had like crazy, like this is TMI, but like crazy diarrhea. And then this started happening where my digestion was so off that I would eat something and then I would have the urge immediately to have to go to the bathroom. And on the same hand, I would have constipation where I couldn't go to the bathroom for like 4 to 5 days in a row. So I was trying to figure out why am I constipated, and then all of a sudden I'm not, and what foods are triggering it, because some are healthy, some are bred, right? And there was a week, and this is why I was depressed too. There was a week during March of 2023 where I didn't leave the apartment because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to manage my bowels. Like it got to that point where there was like a week or 2 weeks where I avoided going outside. And because I was afraid. And I was afraid of food. So even if I did go outside, I wouldn't eat anything for the whole day I was out because I was afraid I would have to go to the bathroom, and what if I couldn't find a bathroom? So now I'm at the point where I'm afraid of food because it doesn't make sense what's working and what's not for me. Then, along with the bloating, there's the inflammation feeling, which is just a feeling of feeling like puffy all over the place. Your body just feels inflamed and like puffy. You don't feel fit no matter how much you're working out. You don't feel healthy no matter how clean you're eating. You just feel like big and swollen and pain. So that was a constant feeling. Then my eyes, I had eye puffiness where I'd wake up and my eyes would just look swollen. The pelvic pain was still there. It was starting to go from a consistent 4 on a scale of 1 to 10 to about an 8 to 9 in March. And I couldn't concentrate on work. I remember like being in WeWork and being so like uncomfortable in my body because I'm like, I can't think with this pain. Like I can't, I'm trying so hard to like sit, but then it hurts, more. And then I stand and then I get so tired of standing. And it was just trying to figure out what clothes to wear. And my favorite outfits weren't fitting anymore. And, and then I'm experiencing more night sweats. And I have a history of night sweats on and off, but it was more consistent. It was becoming more consistent. Dry eyes. There was a point where I couldn't wear my contacts because my eyes were so dry, and that hurts if you're wearing contacts with dry eyes. Knee pain, which is just random, but my knee joints I would feel them and I'd be like, I didn't even do anything. Like I'm at the point where I like slowly am stopping my workouts because I'm in too much pain and discomfort and afraid to work out. Back pain, that was a big one. So now there's pelvic pain and there's back pain. Pain during sex. This was also a very sad one, which is something I experienced for the first time ever. Like physical pain, like during the insertion, during penetration, like hurting. It hurt so bad. No matter how lubed up I was, no matter if I was turned on, it really hurt. And this came with my vagina being dry and not being able to get wet. So I would have to use lube. And this was the part of my life. I mean, this is the stage of my life where for the first time I felt reliant on lube. And that made me feel insecure because, like, what does it mean? I'm a dried up old woman, right? Like, that's what we're told. If you need lube and you can't get wet yourself, that must mean something's wrong with you, right? So I know, even as a sex educator, and even as someone who knows this isn't true, even experiencing it for the first time was so shocking to me because I've never experienced it before. And I didn't believe that would ever be me because I was kind of the opposite. Like I would get wet very easily the majority of my life up until that point. And that was scary in a way. And then I tried my best to make sense of that by being like, okay, well, my body's obviously going through shit. The last thing it wants to do is probably try to procreate. So it kind of makes sense that sex would be a no-go for my body right now, especially with the pelvic pain. So I made sense of why that was happening due to the pelvic pain, especially. And then lack of libido came with that. For the first time, I didn't know what it felt like to feel horny for quite a while. And this is when my work became a bit difficult because here I am making videos about getting aroused and, enjoying sex and, everyone being like, oh, I want a girl like you, and just hearing all this stuff, getting this feedback and having to put out content that no longer really resonates with me. And this is the first time the imposter syndrome kind of hit me where I'm like, can I even talk about this shit when I'm dealing with this? Like, are people going to believe me? Do I come across like I'm lying? Am I lying? Do I even qualify to teach this anymore? And all these thoughts are in my head, contributing to that anxiety because of what I'm going through. And then there's a few more symptoms: nerve pain in my toes, which was weird. Like just some of these are so weird and random. Like I've never had nerve pain in my toes before. And another one was slow healing. Like I would get bruised so easily, and if I got a cut, it would take forever to heal. Like just minor things where I'd just hit the coffee table really lightly and I would have this big bruise that just would stay for weeks. And then lastly is temperature changes, which is getting really cold out of nowhere and then getting really hot. And just having no explanation for that. So at this point, with all of these symptoms basically hitting me in 1 month, the depression sets in. I start feeling helpless and hopeless, and I'm in bed more and more, right? I'm afraid. I'm freaking out. And remember, this is the first month that Andrew's living with me. So this is his first experience of being with me. And he could have been like, fuck this shit. Like, I'm going back to Austin. You got to figure out how to take care of yourself. But he didn't. And I also had the best financial month of my life in that same month that I was depressed, because work was the one thing that I could focus on to keep me going. And as painful as it was to do the work I was doing while going through all this shit, it gave me purpose. And my clients, who I actually had probably 6 to 8 clients one-on-one at this time. My clients were amazing clients, like amazing, and they were getting amazing results. So I think there was a part of me that was like, they need you and you're good at this. Like, don't stop and don't give up. And yeah, so it actually boggles my mind how I had that type of month, and also how I managed to help people at the same time. Like, that's still like is crazy to me. But Andrew just got home, so I'm going to continue this in a bit. Okay, so we're back about 2 hours later. Andrew walked in the door and he was like, I got sourdough. Sourdough bread has been my favorite thing since all of this. Because turns out fresh sourdough bread is actually good for your gut. And I feel great eating it. Anyway, maybe I'll get into that. But all right, so stop crying, collected myself. Andrew's like, what's wrong? Are you okay? So what really happened in March, and speaking of Andrew, my boyfriend, this was, like I said, my lowest point, the point of the most symptoms coming on, me feeling the most uncertain and helpless, but also crushing it at work because it gave me purpose. This is when Andrew was like, all right, you got to find answers. Like, and he did it in such a loving way. Like, he never, and I think this is an important rule, because it's easy to get frustrated with your partner when they're complaining a lot, right? Or when they seem really lazy, or whatever the case may be. But Andrew was very supportive during this time when I was so sensitive and confused. And he made it feel like a strength for me to find my answers. So his approach was, you know why I love you? It's because of how resilient you are. And you find ways to do what you need to do and get what you want. And that's what I love about you. And you need to do that right now. And I think it's more important than ever that you do that now. Like, find your answers, do more research. You got to figure out what's going on, and you can. So it was kind of this serious, tough love, but also calling out a strength of mine that made me feel like, okay, like it was the first time I felt strong, was him kind of having that talk with me and making me feel like, all right, he's right. I need to figure this out. Like, I can't just wallow and sit here. So at this point, I'm researching, and I'm starting to think more and more that it's endometriosis, and I'm getting all flustered because some of it doesn't make sense with endometriosis, and the gynecologists were like, it really doesn't seem like endometriosis, but I thought it was. And then I bought and read 3 books on endometriosis, and here I am thinking that that's what it is, but also confused and not. And I had booked a consult with an endometriosis specialist who was in Beverly Hills, California, because I was like, if I get this surgery and they check to see if that's what it is, then I'm going to go to this woman. So I scheduled a really expensive consultation, and I was about to go down that route, and feeling like it really wasn't the answer, but I was just going to do it anyway because like, fuck it, I needed an answer. And not too long after that, I came across an Instagram story post by Lauren Bostic. She is the founder of the Skinny Confidential. It's a women's wellness brand, and she's awesome. She's probably one of the top 2 influencers I follow the most. So I have a lot of trust in her. And she was talking about how she's getting an explant surgery. And she was like, I've been having some symptoms of feeling sluggish and tired. And she didn't have a ton of BII symptoms, but she was basically saying that she talked to more and more people who experienced some negative symptoms with their breast implants. So she was on the way to get hers out. And it was literally an IG story of her on the way to this doctor in Austin to get her implants taken out for good. And she was like, I just want to like feel my best. And I'm going to do this, So I was like, holy shit, maybe it's my implants. Like, what the fuck? And it was the first time I even thought that it could be my implants, which is ridiculous because it's like a foreign body sitting there in my like plastic, just chilling in my body. And I think that couldn't possibly, weigh down my immune system and mess with some things. So I find it kind of humorous that didn't even cross my mind until I saw this post. But like, what are the chances of me seeing her story? Because I don't watch her stories every day, but like watching it that day and having that epiphany and being like, holy shit, what doctor is she going to? Because I trust her. She always gets the best of the best of everything. You could tell that's part of her brand. She does a lot of research. That's also part of her brand. So I was like, I'm going to check out this guy along with some others. So I did my more research on breast implant illness, and I joined a couple groups, and just going into these communities and hearing of all these women talking about the same shit I was going through. And I started crying, and I was like, holy shit, like, I'm not alone. This is happening. This is real. I'm not crazy. And there's other women who are dealing with this. And what is kind of crazy is that I've had my implants in for like about 9 years at this point. So this isn't something, and women will say like, in the groups and everything, some of them were like, I had my implants and 3 months later, I had to get them taken out because of so many symptoms and my body rejecting them. And then other women were like, I had mine for 15 years and then my body started rejecting them. So I was like, wow, like this can really happen. Like there's no specific timeline, and your health doesn't matter either, because I was the healthiest. I never got sick. By the way, like one of my symptoms was just always getting sick, like around March and April. Like I was sick most of March and April and May, actually throughout the year. I just kept catching colds, and they would last like 2 weeks. And then I caught the flu like twice. It was just so strange for me to have such a low, like a weak immune system. So that was like the biggest thing I learned about breast implant illness, was that it weakens your immune system because of the high inflammation. Like your body is trying so hard to get rid of this foreign object. So it's using so many of its resources to get rid of this object, and then it slows down everything else. And it kind of at some point kind of gives up and is like, everything goes haywire. So anyway, I'm like freaking out because I see her getting an explant, and now I know what an explant is, and it's the removal of implants. and that so many women feel so relieved once they are out of their body and they feel back to normal again. And I also listen to podcasts and read up on, community stories of women who's had to spend $250,000 on medical treatment because of their implants, So the stories were crazy. Some women, like Like Lauren didn't have a ton of BII symptoms or a ton of, but she knew something was up and she just wanted them out. And other women are like, I literally almost died. Like I was on my deathbed. Like organs were shutting down, so the stories vary. So yeah, everybody's a bit different, and it doesn't matter your fitness level or your health level. Because like I said, I've always been in amazing shape and I eat super clean, basically my whole life. So now I'm telling Andrew and we're freaking out and we're like researching what the surgeries are like and different doctors and on consults with different doctors. But I knew that Lauren's doctor would probably be the one that I ended up with because his name is Dr. Rob Whitfield. And what I loved about him was that he no longer puts implants in women. And he doesn't do that because he understands what it does to the body and how it ruins so many women's lives. So he refuses to put them in. He only takes them out. And then he takes women, and his team takes women through a detox process to make sure that all heavy metals and mold and anything that came along with that plastic sitting there in the body for so long is removed and that the body can function optimally again. Something else he does is total, I always forget the name of it. But basically it means that an end block. So he removes the whole capsule. He doesn't just take out the plastic boob, fake implant, I should say. He takes out the covering that the body builds to protect that implant. So that covering has been touching the plastic for so long that, and this is what I think. I don't know if this is true, so let me put that out there, actually. I think this is why he takes out the whole covering too. Like the body creates a covering around the plastic to protect the foreign object from interfering with anything important, right? So the body's protection system is to build this thin or sometimes hard layer, which is called the capsule, around the implant. And some doctors just pull out the plastic implant, silicone, saline, whatever, and they leave the covering and they don't get every bit of the covering. They don't take out the whole covering. And because of that, women still struggle and have health issues because of some of those pieces being like interfering with the implant and being left in the body, left in the breast tissue. So Dr. Rob Whitfield makes sure that the whole capsule is taken out along with the implant. So because of this, in my case, I ended up with less breast tissue than I had before I got implants once I got the explant because Dr. Rob Whitfield took out the whole capsule. And sometimes when you take out the whole capsule, it is connected to natural breast tissue. And, there's nothing you could really do about it. You have to take it out with some of the natural breast tissue. So that's why when I eventually got out of surgery, I was basically flat, where originally I was an A cup. So I got breast implants at the age of 23, and I really didn't think twice about it. I was just like, oh, I want boobs, and it will be fun. And I just found a doctor in Manhattan, and I was like, oh, he's good. He's in Manhattan. I was living in Jersey, and I just automatically trusted this Manhattan doctor, and I just went for it. Like, I don't even remember doing research. I don't remember taking it very seriously. I just went and fucking did it. Oh my God. And you'll hear more about why that was a horrible thing to do. But so now that I have some answers, I get a bit of relief. Right? So I am now at least like, all right, at least I have an answer. This still is scary because now I feel like the things that are causing this are like stuck in me and I want them out. So now it's this feeling of like, I want these out of my body, like freaking out about it a little, like feeling like creeped out by it. So at this point within finding Dr. Whitfield and doing research, 2 weeks later, I book with Dr. Whitfield. And I had to wait a few months. So he didn't have availability. This was like around March or early April when I booked with him, and he didn't have availability until the end of August. So I'm like, fuck, like, how am I going to do this for so long? And he said, well, we have a team that's going to help start to detox you and prepare you best for surgery so that you feel like, you're starting to feel better and that you're doing everything you possibly could do to heal your gut before we take out the implants, and everything you could possibly do to relieve your stress. And we'll have you do a food map test to make sure we know what food sensitivities we need to, what foods are hurting you basically and which foods aren't. Because as I said, some healthy foods were getting to me and I didn't understand why. So they did a bunch of tests on me, like blood tests, food tests. I remember I had to do a saliva test, a pee test, a blood test, and a stool test. And I had to do the stool test myself. And let me tell you, this was one of the grossest experiences of my life, if not the grossest, because it was nasty. I had to like dig into my own shit. It was disgusting. But I mean, that's what happens when you have to do shit like this. No pun intended. All right. So there I am at the lowest point in my life, digging through my shit, putting it into a tube, and I'm like crying. I still remember that day, like just like feeling embarrassment for myself, even though I was alone like doing this. Oh man. But yeah, so I am excited, but at the same time, like, oh my God, there's so much to do. But now I have support. So Dr. Whitfield's team is now working with me, and there's a nutritionist working with me. And she's telling me and explaining to me the results of the food map test, especially. And she's like, your gut is in really bad shape right now. And we got to get you to the point where you're eating foods that are going to allow nutrition to get into your body, because basically my body was not absorbing nutrients. And that's why my immune system was so low and I couldn't get healthy when I was sick. So I had to start rebuilding my gut basically from the ground up. And that took a lot of prebiotics, probiotics, a lot more water, adequate exercise, right? No caffeine. She made me cut out caffeine, which was really sad. I had to cut out dairy. I had to cut out gluten, and no sugar, and what else? No fried foods, no junk foods, like not even like a bag of chips or anything, like nothing that wasn't organic, and water. No alcohol for sure. No like smoking or anything like that. I had to keep it clean, like as clean as possible. So this is another bummer, because here I am again feeling like, like I can't, here are more things I can't do or feel like are taken away from me, along with my strength and my energy and my confidence. And, yeah, so I kind of saw it as a loss. And then I was thinking, how can I not see this as such a loss? Because I am losing a lot of things. And how do I see this as a gain? Like, how can I see this as a strength? And this is when I thought of 75 Hard. 75 Hard was a program created by Andy Frisella, and he created it as a lifestyle program to help you get your life together, basically, by doing 6 things on a daily basis. And these 6 things are 45-minute workout outdoors, a 45-minute workout indoors, read 10 pages of a personal development book, something that will help you grow in life. Take a selfie every day to monitor your physical progress. Drink a gallon of water a day, and no alcohol, junk food. Yeah, none of that. Nothing, no junk food. I hope I'm not missing one. Why do I feel like I'm missing one? Okay, but anyway, I was like, all right, I'm going to do 75 Hard again. I've done it in the past when I was 19. It was hard, but I was like in great shape and I was really testing myself physically at this point. So this time around, I'm going to do it more to challenge myself mentally, because I want to do 75 hard to help me feel like I'm making all these sacrifices and I'm pushing through this in a good way for a good reason. And it made me feel strong. Being a part of 75 hard gave me some confidence, because I felt like, I'm not just having to lose all this stuff for nothing. Instead, let me lose it and have pride in the fact that I'm taking better care of myself, and I'm going to be in the best shape I possibly can be for this explant surgery. And I plan to start 75 hard 75 days exactly before surgery, so that the 75th day was the day before my surgery, or 2 days before my surgery, something like that. So I planned it to be that way. And I'm so glad I did that, because it, like I said, it gave me confidence. It turned into me feeling like, having a really bad day and still having to get up and do an outdoor walk and do an indoor workout. It was like, I am strong, like I'm still strong. I may be struggling a lot, but I can still do things that I don't really want to do. And I can still push myself for the better of myself. And I can still learn, and I can still drink a lot of water. It was just, I really love that I did that. And, so then in August, I make it, to the point where 2 weeks, before my surgery, I was supposed to have what's called a deflation. And a deflation is when they basically pop the implant. I shouldn't say pop, maybe that's not the right word, but they deflate it to see if I needed to get a breast lift or to see if I wanted a fat transfer, right, in the same surgery. So my doctor said, you might want to do the deflation. That way we know, he's like, you have really good skin, so you may not need a lift, which means they just tighten everything up and they get rid of excess skin. He's like, but you might want a fat transfer. And, so let's just do a deflation. And he's like, but you have to make sure that your implants are saline and not silicone, because it won't work with silicone. If we do a deflation, it's not going to work, because the inside of silicone is a gel. It's not a liquid. So I was like, no, they're definitely saline, because when I got my implants when I was 23, I told my doctor, I definitely want saline implants. 100% want saline implants. That's the only thing I know. They're safer. Those are the safe implants. And let me remind you, there are women with breast implant illness who've had saline implants. So it's not like silicone are bad and saline are good. Saline also lead to breast implant illness. So let's clarify that. Anyway, so I have the expectation that I'm like 99% sure that I have saline. And the reason why I wasn't 100% sure is because my doctor was like, you should have got a card that told you what type of implants you have when you got the surgery. Do you have your card? And I was like, a card? What the fuck? Like, no, I never got a card. What do you mean a card? And I talked to other women in the communities and they're all like, yeah, we got cards. You get a card when you get an implant. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. So I never got this card. And so I'm telling my surgeon 99% chance. I'm in New York City, so I'm literally flying to Austin for 1 day with Andrew to have this deflation. So 2 weeks before the surgery, I'm all like, oh shit, here we go. This is going to be crazy. They're just going to like deflate my boobs and the plastic is still going to be in there. So that's going to be crazy. So I'm getting all emotional about this, right? And luckily, his team has a great support where there's a woman named Candace who no longer works there, but used to when I was there. And she was so supportive that it was like so much thanks to her that I felt so emotionally safe during this whole process. So I get there, we arrive in Texas, in Austin, and I'm like on the operating table, holding Candace's hand, like crying, and he's injecting the needle to suck out the inside of the implant. It's just through a needle. And he's like, Steph, it's not working. And I was like, what? And before I went, when I wasn't sure about getting a card, the implant card, I was like, that's weird. Let me call up my doctor, Eric Sade. So I go to his website and it's shut down. And then I'm seeing these articles about how he fled the fucking country for botching women's surgeries and how there's all these lawsuits up against him to, yeah. So I'm just like, okay, like this doesn't help anything. So that made me reach out to, my doctor before the deflation and be like, my doctor fucking fled the country. So I actually can't be positive if I have, silicone or saline. And he was like, holy shit. Okay. Well, it's up to you if you want to fly in for the day and give it a shot. Like there's a chance we try and then you go home with nothing done. So I took the chance. And then, fast forward to what I just explained. Yeah, I was hyper emotional at that point because I felt lied to by this fucking doctor. And then I felt I felt bad that Andrew spent a whole day flying with me, that we used a flight for that. Like there was so much guilt and sadness and nervousness and anxiety. And I'm just like, oh God, like what the fuck? So then we fly back home that day. And by the way, Andrew never made this a thing at all. It was like, he was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And it was never about him. It was never about wasting his time. And I know I say this, I point out this stuff often, and it's not that I don't care. And I definitely appreciate him, and I show, wow, you could have reacted so differently. And I appreciate how patient and loving you are with me during these hard moments. And his response is like, I'm going to have hard moments too, Steph. And, I want you to be there for me. Or babe. He never calls me Steph. That was funny. But yeah, so it's just the understanding that he expects me to be just as patient and chill when it comes to something that he's dealing with. And I will be. So yeah. So now I'm an emotional wreck. We get back home. I got 2 weeks before surgery now. And I'm just at this point continuing 75 hard and just wanting these things out of my chest. And yeah, and I'm excited. I'm getting excited. I'm getting hopeful that, okay, things will get better. Things will get better. And the detox before, working with the nutritionist definitely helped. Avoiding gluten and sugar and alcohol and dairy was hard because we had friends visit us and I couldn't eat anything anybody was eating. I couldn't have the ice cream on the ice cream nights. I couldn't have pizza on pizza nights. I couldn't have most of the things that they were eating, like the fried chicken when we went to the fried chicken restaurant. I had to go off on my own and find a smoothie place every time. So it was just it felt very isolating, the whole experience of having to do things differently than everybody else, or having to walk slower because I was in pain, or having to call it a night and go home early and miss, the event that I was at because I didn't feel well. There was so much of that made me feel wow, you used to be this strong person and now who are you? You're not. And I'm but am I? I am, and it's that part of me trying to talk myself up while also feeling I'm slowly breaking down. And, but then I get the explant surgery, and surgery is really it's really a blur. It's I don't know, if you've had surgery, that it's a blink of an eye. Only when you wake up, when you're done blinking, you're in extreme pain. And you can't even explain the amount of pain because it's just agony. It's you can't, I'm pretty sure I just passed out from pain. Hopefully it was from the pain meds when they eventually kicked in. But I just remember going in, kissing Andrew, going in, and they just, I was holding Candace's hand, and the anesthesiologist was really funny. And I remember laughing about the weird joke he made about I'm going to send you to a lovely place and it's going to have this and that. It was just really cute and funny. So I remember right before I passed out, I was happy and I was surrounded by people smiling at me. And I think that's so important. And I'm so blessed that that was my experience going under. But then, yeah, coming up, I just remember like moaning and begging for more painkillers. And they were like, okay, we'll give you more, but like that's all you can have. And you got to wait for it to kick in like a half hour. And I was like, what? And it just felt like they ripped my inside. Like I felt like my breasts were just torn open still. Like that's how it feels. But yeah, so Andrew comes and gets me and I'm all drugged up. So I think he forgot me because he was 5 minutes late and I was like about to cry. Like, I was like, I need a juice. Like, he's like, you want me to get you juice land? That's your favorite thing. And I was like, ah. I couldn't even speak English. I was just like, blah, blah, blah. And, yeah, and thankfully I had a beautiful place to stay for the week. So I was, healing in bed for that week and just icing every 30 minutes on and off for 7 days, which is kind of crazy. But Andrew was on top of it. Fucking my saint boyfriend, who's just fucking incredible. And I just slowly, like day by day, was just walking around and like sleeping a lot. And then we flew home. And by September, I felt like myself. And I was like, holy shit, like my symptoms are all reversing. And I was freaking out because I'm like, this is crazy. Like, how is this happening? Like, I had like 20 to 30 symptoms and now they're like more than half of them are gone. Like I'm not even feeling them. The pelvic pain is hardly there, which was like one of the most intense. I'm like bloating so much less and I have energy and my hair stopped falling out and I'm like, whoa, like this is crazy. Oh my God, I'm so happy. So I get all excited and then October comes and I relapse and symptoms start coming back. And I was like, oh God, like what's going on? But I was told this would happen. I was told that women are like, this is a journey. This could take up to a year. For some women, it takes a few years. For some women, they're good in 6 months. Others are good in a month. Like it's different, just as it's different on how BII affects women. So yeah, symptoms are coming back. I start losing hair again and I start getting nauseous again for no reason and my gut issues start flaring up even though I'm gluten-free and I'm just like, oh, fuck. And I'm just like trying to be, mentally stable, but we're about to move to Austin, so early October, we're about to move. I get sick. I get the flu and we're literally trying to sell stuff. Or I'm trying to sell stuff in the apartment. Andrew was definitely helping me. So we were selling stuff in my New York apartment and I have the fucking flu. So I'm like losing it. I'm sweating. I'm like sleeping in between people coming up to pick stuff up. It was horrible. I'm still feeling sore. I can't lift things. It's like I have these like physical limitations. It was just one of the hardest weeks ever was this move to Austin. And then I get on a plane and, we're packing. Oh, by the way, Andrew has me pack as a minimalist. So he's like, let's just start fresh. Minimal life is the best life. Minimalist. And I'm like, it's okay. I'll be able to fit all this in 2 suitcases. And he's like, no, you won't. I promise you won't. And yeah, he was right. I was wrong. I had to get rid of so many things at the last minute, which was also causing anxiety and stress. So I'm like, I can't handle this. And we get to the airport and then my bag weighs too much. So I'm like pulling out more stuff and just throwing it out. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck anymore. Just like get me to Austin because I have the flu. So get to Austin and I'm laying on the floor with the flu as he's unpacking everything. And I am just still dealing with symptoms. Like symptoms are coming and going and they make no sense. And I'm talking to doctors. I'm talking to gut doctors. They want to put me on antibiotics. I'm like, no, my gut, I feel like I finally am getting in a better place with my gut with all the work I've been doing with the detox. I'm not doing antibiotics to fuck it up. And I'm not for that. If you are, that's fine. But I was just like, no, that doesn't feel good for me. My intuition is telling me no. And I'm like, I need to chill the fuck out, like, because I am so, like, I'm spending I'm spending thousands of dollars at this point trying to figure out what I can do and how to get to a healthy place and overcome all these relapsing. They put me on a detox post-surgery, Whitfield's team, and then I started vomiting from it. And they were like, we definitely don't want you vomiting, so get off of it. We'll start it again in a little bit. And then I tried starting it again, and then I got sick again on it. And they're like, this is kind of strange. Like, maybe hold off on it, and then we'll try to start it slowly with a smaller dose. So I'm like, oh my God. And then I have a trip. I have trips to California. So I was going to be in California for 2 weeks, and I go on this trip to California, and as I'm there, I get this food poisoning reaction. We go to Argentina, and I get this food poisoning reaction the day we're supposed to leave for our flight because I had some pizza. I was feeling good, and I was like, let me just have a little pizza, and I'll be, I'm feeling really good lately. Have some pizza, gluten, right? Plus, it was gross pizza. It was super thick, and like, it was the grossest meal I've probably ever had. Other than that, the food was amazing. But we get to the apartment, and I start losing my eyesight. I start losing my hearing. I'm dizzy. My skin feels like a huge rash, like it's burning up, like my skin's on fire. And I'm not sure if I have to vomit or go to the bathroom, right? So I'm sitting on the toilet. Turns out I'm doing both. And I'm just losing it. And I scream for Andrew because my sight is going and I can't hear anything but like a ringing. And I'm scared. I'm like terrified of like, is my body finally just shutting down? Like, what's happening? But I've had food poisoning in Mexico years ago. So I kind of figured this must be food poisoning. So I'm panicking. And he's like, Steph, we have the airport. Like, we have to fly. We're supposed to be at the airport in 1 hour. Are you going to be okay? And I was like, I couldn't even talk. I was so sick. So he's like getting frustrated because I can't speak. And we had the Airbnb. We weren't sure if we could extend it. And it was this whole thing with the woman. So it turns out it was actually pretty easy, I think. Yeah, it wasn't a big deal to extend it, thank God. But it was just a big deal that those flights were expensive flights. We're in Argentina, so we had to miss them. Of course, I paid for different flights home for us, but that was just more of like, like, fuck this. There was also a trip in Vegas. We went during the summer, and I got sick at Vegas, and I had horrible bloating where it was so painful that the next day, on the day of our flight, I was like laying down sweating in the Vegas Wynn lobby, and Andrew was just petting my head, and I was like, had like, I don't know if it was a fever coming on. I don't know if it was like another food allergy, but I got dizzy. I was sweating, and I was like panting, and that was also the day of our flight. So now fast forward to this California trip, and I get sick again. Only this time all I had were nuts. And I'm like, I always eat almonds. Like, why would I get sick from this? So now I'm freaking out because I'm like, I don't know what's causing this food poisoning reaction I'm getting for the third time. And like, how do I trust if I can go anywhere? Like, this was horrible. And no one could explain it. Like, no GI doctor could tell me what it was. And then I had a doctor who was like, it might be irritable bowel syndrome, but you're also not an ideal candidate for it because of this, this, and this. And it just didn't, like, no one could make sense of these food poisoning reactions. And then this doctor I was talking to was like, food poisoning? Like, and he was just like, he was literally looking at me like I was crazy. Like, we were on a video call, and like, he was just like, well, I'm sure it wasn't like a food poisoning reaction. I'm like, it was. Like, it's exactly what I'm fucking telling you, So I was getting frustrated with like no one understanding me and me just not knowing what my body was doing. So I start fearing food, and I'm just afraid to go out. I'm afraid to eat anything. And I'm like, oh, here I am again. Like, I thought I was getting better. Here I am again, a few months later. What do I do? And I found this, my mom found this woman, Marissa Peer, who does health meditations, and she's a therapist who has these health meditations that have like these certain affirmations within them. And it brought me so much peace for that time in my life. I remember starting those meditations and actually starting to learn how to speak to my body. And I started telling my body, like, you're getting better. And it's okay. It's okay if you're hurting right now, but you are healing, and I need you to keep trying to heal. And I know I sound like a crazy person, but I would literally tell my body, like, body, I want you to do this. Like, bloating, I need you to go away. Like, I was literally like giving my body commands, like, digestive system, I want you to process this food as easily as you can, okay? Like, it was very much like speaking to, I don't even know, but I was like informing it and I was telling it what to do. And I'm sure it was placebo effect, but this helped me so much to calm my body down, to calm my mind down, and to feel like I had more control. Because I did feel like when I talked to the food I was eating and when I talked to how my body was going to process it, that I did process it better. And this is where I was like, holy shit, okay, I have to use my mind more. And then I started reading more books on that, like how to heal yourself with your mind and how to, and books on the gut, like the actual physical gut and what's going on. And then I was watching Netflix documentaries with like the best thing to rebuild your gut, right? So there was just so much education around all this stuff. And then in December, Andrew has me watch this documentary it was on Netflix. It was called Fantastic Fungi. And it's about psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms. And I watched it. And for the first time, I was like intrigued with trying it. And this is something Andrew has done multiple times and has told me I should do it. Or not I should, but he was always like, babe, I think you'd love it. And like, they're so fun and insightful and like this and that. And I was like, no, I don't do any of that. Stop doing drugs, blah, blah, blah. But when I watched this Fantastic Fungi, I was like, whoa, this is more than just a drug. This is healing. Like, this is connecting to your body. This is connecting to life itself. And I just like felt something, and my gut was like, start doing mushrooms. And I started microdosing in December, and I stopped doing everything else. I told the nutritionist I was done with the detox because it didn't feel right. I was like, it's just not working for me. My body does not like it. I want to get off of it. I'm going to continue eating as healthy as I can based on my food map and my knowledge. And I'm going to follow my instincts, and I'm going to keep talking to my body. And all I'm going to do are shrooms. Like, that's the only supplement that I'm going to trust in and see what happens. And most of my physical symptoms were slowing down and also gone by the point of January, probably end of January. I started microdosing in December, and towards the end of January, I'm calmer, I'm more at peace. Because if you think about it, they're using microdosing in therapy now as a form of reducing anxiety, especially. And that's the power they have, is more on your mental mind, not so much, physical pain, but think about how much physical pain comes from your mentality and the way you're thinking and your anxiety. So much of my pain at this point was slowing down or dissolving completely because my mind was more at peace, and I was calmer, and I was looking at this whole thing a different way. But then at this point, because I was calmer and more at peace based on less physical symptoms, I started taking more notice of how I looked. And I had more energy to pay attention to my body image, right? So at this point, I'm like, wow, my tits do not look great. And these are not the boobs I've had for 9 years or even before 9 years. These are boobs that are ugly and that are deformed and that I'm not attracted to. And these like I'm flat. Like, what the fuck? You know, and this is when all these voices were coming in because, like I said, I had the energy to do it based on the physical and mental symptoms dissolving. And I've always had that, you know, it's not that I wasn't thinking of body image. As soon as I got my surgery the next day, 2 days later, they unwrapped the bandages and I didn't want to look. So I was telling the nurse, I don't want to look. Can you just change the bandage without me looking? And I was getting emotional and she said, yeah, that's okay. And she's like changing the bandage. And as she's changing it, I'm running my fingers up to just feel what I feel instead of looking. And all of a sudden I'm like running from my belly button up to my nipple. And there was absolutely no change in form. It was just a straight line right to the nipple. And I started crying and kind of panicking, you know, like where did my boobs go? And she was hugging me and she was saying, read this book and it will help you get through your body image and help you love your body and this and that. And I was just like, what the fuck? You know, it was just such a what the fuck moment. And that was just one of the things that kept me, that wasn't helping me heal because it's like, you know, there are most women who have explant, at least in the communities and whatnot, if they have an explant surgery, they take out the implants and they still have natural boob because they've probably had bigger boobs than me, who's like a double A. Like I was so small. So if you have like a B or C cup naturally, and then you get an explant, you'll still have a good amount of your boobs, where I didn't have anything. So I was like, I feel like a fucking boy. Like what do I do about this? You know, and kind of just like, and the more as the months went by and I'm dealing with all these health issues, like I said, finally in February, it really hit me where I was just so like unattracted to myself for the first time I can remember. And for the first time I felt ugly. Like I felt like an unattractive woman. And this opened a whole new thing of like, who am I? Like, what's my... Like, it was kind of like an identity crisis. Like, who am I now? Like, how do I be this type of woman in a world where I'm used to being this type of woman? Like, I'm used to having people look at me a certain way and treat me a certain way. And it's like, it's hard because you don't know if it's the insecurity that you have when you notice lack of attention, or if it really is the lack of boobs that is the lack of attention. It's probably both, but I felt it, you know, and I even felt it from Andrew. And that was the hardest part of all. And you know, I would bring it up and be like, is something wrong? I feel like something's, you know, wrong between us. And you know, I mentioned all these things I'm dealing with, but outside of these things I've dealt with, you know, we did the best we possibly could to live a fun life, a full life. You know, we still went on those trips, even though I got sick every time. We still, you know, hung out with friends. We had cool experiences. Like, we still lived life. So we still had a strong relationship, but I knew that something was missing. And what I was really feeling was that attraction piece was missing. And I didn't know if it was that. So I would just ask, like, I feel like something's off between us, and I feel like we're not having sex as much and we're not like flirting as much. And he would like brush it off, and then he would, you know, tell me that, oh, I'm just really like, sex doesn't feel like a priority right now. And that to me was a red flag because, as you guys know, like, sex should be a priority in your romantic relationship. That's what I believe. So that really hurt. And he apologized for saying that pretty soon after. But the fact that he believed that and said that, I knew, holy shit, red flag. This is not good. What do we do? And I knew that I was going to get a fat transfer. That was always the plan, because my surgeon told me, you're most likely going to want a fat transfer because you won't have much coming out. So there definitely was the expectation, but I wanted to heal my body first and make sure, I wasn't going through so much shit before I got another surgery, which I'm glad I did. But so anyway, we end up revisiting the conversation. And I had these feelings about Andrew from like December to like February. It was very noticeable to me. Even a little before that, but like especially those months. And that's when I brought it up to him. And it was the hardest conversation I've ever had in my life, because I think it was probably one of the hardest for him too, because he had to admit that like he wasn't as attracted to me anymore. And part of it, and then he was questioning himself and, what kind of man is he? And I didn't want him to feel guilty, because I understood it. I really did understand it. Because I think, and I said to him the same thing. I said this a little later. I was like a month later or something, like, I get it. If you all of a sudden one day were in shape as you are now, and then the next day had a beer gut, like, I would also have trouble like being attracted to you. I would, like, I'll be honest about that. So I get it. And like, I just wanted him to make sure that I understood him. And in the moment of that first conversation, like, we were both just very emotional. This is the most emotional I've ever seen him. And, he also made it clear, like, it's not just your boobs, it's your confidence mostly. It's the fact that, you were this person and now, you're this person dealing with all this. And it's been a lot. Like, our relationship has not been easy from the moment we moved in together. It's actually been pretty hard, but yeah, that conversation of just him admitting that to me, I know was extremely, extremely difficult for him, because he tried to avoid it for as long as possible. And he said, I was hoping it would just go away. And like, I just eventually just be fine and everything would be okay. And you would never have to hear these words out of my mouth. And, because it was the most painful thing that I've ever heard. And I'm glad we had it. We had the conversation, because at least I had clarity. Like, I didn't have that thought in the back of my mind, like, something's wrong, but I don't know what it is exactly. And so it was hard to have that conversation. And it's still kind of hard. It hasn't gone back completely, but we've made a lot of progress. Yeah, for me, just threw me into a panic state. I think I had like a panic attack that night or something, because I was like, do we just end it? Like, what do we do? I've never been in this situation. Like, what would I tell a client? And that's the weird thing about me and my life, is that as a sexologist, like, I'm not supposed to have sex problems, right? Like, I'm supposed to be the expert who is just totally fine all the time. And I'm always attracting my boyfriend and he always wants sex with me. And I know the best techniques for everything, right? Because I teach them. And this really harsh moment of imposter syndrome came at this point, especially because I'm like, how do I fucking make videos about arousal and like attraction, keeping your partner attracted to you? Like, how do I talk about this shit? How do I talk about being excited about sex when my partner doesn't want sex with me? Like, what? it just felt like, what am I doing with my life? Like, am I cut out for this? Like, and it was this back and forth between like, Steph, you're human too. You know, you're going to have problems too. And you got to normalize these problems because everybody thinks that there are people out there with no sex problems and that, you know, everyone's fine except for the people that have problems. But no, like we all go through something, and no matter what your expertise are in, you're going to have trouble with that thing at some point, and that's okay. That's what I really love about Vanessa Marin, who's a sex therapist, and she talks about how she faked most orgasms of her life. And people will give her shit like on Instagram when she posts about it, and they'll be like, wow, yeah, I want to work with a sex therapist who fakes her O's. Like, but she's like, dude, I'm trying to tell you that I've been through some shit. I came out on the other side of it, and I understand that I don't have to fake anymore. And here's why. Like, here's what I learned from this. You know, so she's showing she's human, and her story is actually what gave me courage to share this, because it's like, it's okay to have phases of life like this. It makes sense in a lot of instances. So, and you also have to look at the perspective of your partner too, you know, because as I said, I understood where Andrew was at, especially at that time, because my confidence was very low. You know, he was involved in this whole thing. Like, we were both going through a lot of shit. And even though he'll tell me that 2003 was the least stressful year of his life, because he's definitely dealt with some stress and some headaches and ups and downs or whatnot, it was still hard, you know? But he does always tell me, like, I think you've handled this the best that you could based on everything that's been going on with you and everything that's happened to you. So he would always remind me of that. And it was just at this point, it was this question of, well, I don't want to just be with you because you love me. I want to be with you because you love me and you're attracted to me and I'm attracted to you, and we can express that in a healthy way. And that's very important to me. And we have to figure that out. You know, what are we going to do? You know, and then it felt like there was this pressure of figuring it out. And then the pressure was becoming too much because I was emotional about the healing. like guys, it was a fucking mess. But we did get to the point of me understanding that, okay, just because I'm a sexologist doesn't mean I have to figure this out right now and get him to want to have sex with me all the time right now. I just have to heal, and I have to get my confidence back. And what I'm going to do is plan my fat transfer, because at this point, after the shrooms, most of my symptoms were like completely gone. So at that point, I probably just had bloating, and I have eczema that's actually still here, and like something else that wasn't that big of a deal. So I was like, all right, I'm going to plan my fat transfer. And I told Andrew, this is not for you. This is for me, because I would do it with or without you. So I don't want you having any sense of guilt around this. This is not for you. It's for me. And I hope you enjoy them, but I'm doing this for me. That way he didn't feel pressure, like I'm changing my body and going through another surgery for him. So it was this back and forth of trying to support each other during this really rough time, that even when you're in a rough time, sex doesn't happen naturally. And part of me, you know, I realized that later too, where I'm like, all right, there's so much pressure I'm putting on him right now simply because I'm a sexologist and I feel like an imposter if I'm not having sex at least, 3 times a week. Like, if I'm not having sex 3 times a week, something's wrong with me and I shouldn't be teaching what I'm teaching. That was my own belief, and I had to deconstruct that. So in order to deconstruct this and go from having sex multiple times a week to, once a week, I think the longest we went was probably 2 weeks, which I know for, a lot of you is not that long. But once again, from my viewpoint, based on my history with Andrew as a sexologist, it was a bit shocking to all of a sudden lose my boobs and then all of a sudden lose my sex life with my boyfriend. Those two things happening at the same time did not feel good and kind of freaked me out. right? So what I had to do at this point to stay calm was to put the focus on affection instead of sex, because I figured that would be easier for us to do. We could definitely still show affection because we do show affection, but I could tell Andrew was showing less and less the more he held the secret of his attraction and desire fading for me. So the more he held on to that, and he told me he felt so guilty about it and he was holding on to it and he was hoping it would just pass and he would never have to tell me, and he was trying to protect me by not telling me. And it got to this point where he was like shutting down from me totally and wasn't even showing affection. Like, forget sex. He was losing affection. And that's when I like sat him down and I was like, listen, like, we have to talk. I know something is wrong because you are not yourself and you're turning away from me, like, in every loving possible way, is what it felt to me. And he knew it too, because he said, after having this conversation, it was like a weight was off his shoulders, but it was a whole new problem that we both had to face. So there's another weight put on us, but at least we were honest with each other. And that's a whole nother conversation about, like, because then that brought in, how do I trust you now if you're lying to protect me? And that's a very blurry line, to lie to protect, because then you could use that excuse for anything, right? So then I was in this anxious place of, are you going to lie to me again to protect me? And how do I believe you now? So the anxiety was pretty high. Like I said, the shrooms did a magnificent job of helping me to restabilize. But once Andrew was not playing his loving role in our relationship, the shrooms, no matter how many shrooms I did, it didn't the microdosing didn't help with that, because it's like, you see that, and you also see what your body looks like in the mirror, and it's a lot. So anyway, going on so many tangents. There's a lot of emotions wrapped up in this story, so that's why I'm sharing all these details. It's all like kind of coming back. But yeah, so my idea was, all right, we've been through a lot. I realize that you feel tremendous guilt around having to share this with me. This is the most painful thing I've ever fucking heard or felt, but we have to get through it. And I even started changing the language from like, we have to get through it, to like, how can we figure this out together? I think we both started doing a better job about that, because he was able to finally feel free of this secret and just tell me how much he loves me and how much I mean to him, and how he doesn't want this to affect our relationship or future. And he was scared of what potentially might have to happen. We were both scared. So it turned into this like, okay, well, how about we focus on affection and just showing affection and doing our best to show affection towards each other. And so we agreed to do that, and it was fine for a little bit. And then, of course, because we didn't specify what affection, Andrew would give the type of affection that wasn't necessarily what I needed or wanted, but what he was comfortable with. And therefore, I didn't feel like my cup was full. So I felt like something was missing and something was still so wrong. And in his viewpoint, he's like, well, I'm giving her affection. I'm trying to make more jokes. I'm randomly smiling at her more. Like, so he's like doing these little things that aren't the type of affection I need. Like, he's giving me quick kisses, right? And like, it was just so surface level compared to what I needed. And in my mind, I'm like, does he not even feel comfortable like loving on me anymore? Like, can he not do anything more than what he's giving to me? But I wasn't sharing this to him. It was like a feeling. So I didn't know how to even put it in words yet. And I would just tell him like I'm having anxiety. I was up multiple nights with anxiety and just like, this isn't working. Like, and he was like, I don't get it, because I'm working so hard and I feel like you just can't get enough. Like, it will never be enough. I'll never be enough. And then I realized, okay, it's not that you're not trying and that you're not doing enough, but you're not doing what I need to feel affection from you. Your version of affection is not the same as mine right now in terms of what would make me feel like you're giving me affection. And so I told him, what I would love for you to do, let's get specific. I would love for you to cuddle with me more, and I would love for you to tell me that you love me more often. Like, if you could say those words, if you could tell me you love me every day, and if you could cuddle with me for like a minute or two before we fall asleep, that would feel amazing for me. And I would feel so close to you, and I would feel like I was full affection-wise. And I didn't think it was a lot to ask, like I love you once a day and a 1 to 2 minute cuddle per night. And it was very specific and it was very clear. And so he understood, okay, like it's not that she's asking for all these things and that it's not enough. It's that she wants specific things to feel close to me. So once I was able to recognize that in my own brain and therefore communicate it specifically to him, then he was able to do it. And in that same conversation, I asked him, what would you like me to do more to help you feel more comfortable in our relationship moving through this and doing our best together, right? I always try to use the words together in these conversations. Together, we got this. What should we do for us? Those types of things. But so he said, I would love some more verbal appreciation from you because I do feel like I'm really trying and I'm really trying hard, and I feel like you don't see it. And I really didn't see it. And I told him that, like, I'm really not seeing it, but maybe I'm just so overwhelmed with so many other things going on, and I'm so worried about losing you that all I can see right now in our relationship are the signs of us pulling apart because my focus is on being worried of losing you. So my brain is on the lookout for all the evidence that, okay, you're losing him, get him back, do something, alert. And then it's putting me in a panic mode because I don't know what to do. And then I come across anxious, insecure, like having panic attacks, making him feel worried because I'm not at peace. And it's because where my focus was I'm going to lose my man. And I can't let that happen, right? So what I realized when he said, I would love some more verbal appreciation because I don't know if you recognize it or if you see it, but I do this for you. And I've said this to you yesterday and I did this. And he wasn't wrong. And could he have done more of the specific things that I was looking for? Yes, but he was still doing everything that he had mentioned. So then I had that realization of, wow, yeah, I'm not even noticing these things that he's actually doing because I'm so fucking scared of losing him. So I'm just searching for the evidence of losing him. So that conversation really opened up for both of us this idea that for me, I had to focus on what are the signs that we're solid? What are the signs that he's staying, not leaving? How can I look for that evidence? And at first it was me writing things in my phone, and this might sound ridiculous, but like when you're in a crisis like this, an emotional crisis, as I felt I was going through this, it takes what it takes. And sometimes you got to do things like pull up notes in your phone, title it things Andrew does that show affection for me, and then bullet point thing. Well, don't write that. Write your own thing. But that's what I ended up doing for like the first few days to a week. And I would write down just bids of affection. Like, what was he doing? Oh, he came up behind me and hugged me. He said, I love you. He cuddled me before bed. He made me dinner and made it in the way that I like best and kissed me. He made this made this joke and we were cracking up about it So I was writing down all the evidence that we are strong and we are stable. And then I started talking to my best friend about it. And we would text every day and I would be like, oh, well, like, because she would check in. She would check in with me pretty often, even before my surgery, because she was very supportive and helping me prepare for surgery and feel like confident and healthy and ready. She's my workout buddy. So we're always talking. And I found myself in conversation with her, telling her just randomly things that like Andrew did that day for me. Like it just like happened naturally in conversation. It wasn't like randomly like, oh, Andrew did this for me. But it just would come up. And she was like, wow, look at all these points for Andrew lately. And I was like, wow, yeah. And that was another thing where I realized whenever I talk to her, we have a habit of sharing about either I share about Andrew with her or she shares things her husband does for her just because it's like our daily routine. Like we just share like, like women share everything when we're just talking. So yeah, it just, that also made me realize how much he does and how much love he shows me. So I was like, wow, even just talking to Hene, I see how much affection Andrew gives me. And it's even more than my bullet point notes on my phone. And so now I'm like overwhelmed with all this evidence of affection. And I'm like, oh my God, like he is in this. Like we're getting stable again. Like we're going to be okay. And it was that mindset shift and that recognition and writing down the evidence and looking at it and being like, holy shit. So I hope, you take that as a lesson that you can use too, because the brain can do crazy things. And especially when you're worried about your relationship, your mind can go to dark places instead of where it really should be going, which is, hey, how can we make this work? Like, let's be, I don't want to use the word optimistic, but let's look at all the ways that this can be stable and that you have control over, right? So yeah, it turned into us focusing on the affection. It turned into us feeling like, if sex happens naturally, cool. And if not, that's okay right now. Let's just make sure we're showing love for each other. And that I'm doing my best to heal. And that's this phase of life right now. It's not ideal. And Andrew says, like, just because it's not ideal doesn't mean it's bad. And that was kind of a wake-up call for me too. He was like, yeah, it's not our ideal sex life, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I think we're doing the best we can under the circumstances. And we really were. Like, we were both trying so hard. I was trying to overcome all these physical things and my body going through all these changes and painful, scary things, and then the anxiety around it. And he's trying to keep continue supporting me, and I'm losing my confidence, and I'm not able to joke as much with him when I'm in pain or having a bad day. And like the amount of days where I was just like, I'm having a bad day. It's like, yeah, like I was never a bitch to him, and he'll say that. I was never mean. I was never a bitch, no matter how much pain or shit I was going through. But also, that's not fun or like sexy to live with someone who's constantly having a bad day for months at a time, So I lost my confidence. I lost my fun. Not all of it, but a lot of my confidence. I lost a lot of what makes me fun. I lost my fitness. I couldn't work out because I was in too much pain, and so I was losing that. I went from having big boobs and a tiny waist to now being bloated all the time and no boobs. So now my stomach's sticking out and I have no boobs. So that body image changed, which is a mind fuck. Now it's changed back, but like it was just like crazy, So my fitness level went down, like, and then, with the body image. So it's like, that's why I couldn't blame Andrew or call him like an asshole because, oh, he's, you know, my boyfriend's a jerk. He just stopped being attracted to me. Like I stopped being attracted to me. And that's not good. You know, like if I don't feel good in my body and I can't own the skin that I'm in, that in itself loses a ton of attraction. Right. And I mean, you guys know this, like there are women out there who are 10s and like in the looks department, and then you get to talk to them and they're bitches and they're nasty and they're maybe really insecure. And then you're kind of turned off, right? Because you're like, oh, like she's a 10 looks wise, but personality kind of sucks. Not very attractive, right? It's like in our character, it's the person we are. And also, one of the main lessons here is pressure is the enemy of sex, right? Like if there is, forget all those things lacking that I just mentioned, but like if you feel like, if you think of your sex life with your partner and it feels tense, like the feeling immediately is tension and pressure, you're not going to want to do it. And something Andrew said to me, along with sex isn't a priority right now, the more hurtful thing he said to me at that time was sex feels like a chore. And that was the thing he apologized for because I didn't even know how to react to that. Like, sex feels like a chore? Like, having sex with me feels like a chore for you? Like, what? And I could have reacted so many ways to that. I did react very upset because I was like, think of how hurtful that is to say to your partner. Like, is there another way you can word that? Like, what do you mean by that? And he did apologize for wording it that way. And I think he just couldn't express himself. What he was really wanting to express was, I'm not as attracted to you, which came months later. But yeah, he just said something else in the meantime where he's like, I want to focus on work and it's just not, you know, our sex life is just not ideal right now. So let's just focus on other things. And he kind of just shut it down. And at that time I was just too insecure to keep the conversation going because I knew we might break up if it did. But it just goes to show that's a sign of pressure, right? If your partner says sex feels like a chore, that means sex feels like pressure, not pleasure. And it felt that way for him because it was like, I wasn't in this place to have sex. I was kind of forcing it on myself when I wasn't feeling good. And then I was like expecting him to just go along with it. And it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel natural. And even recently, since we've had the recent conversation about focusing on affection, you know, a few months ago, even a few weeks ago, I'm sorry, that was a few weeks ago, we've been doing like, I've noticed how we have sex when it's just natural to have sex. And that means we're in good moods, you know, we're really relaxed, we're spending time together. Maybe we like go out at night and then we come home and we lay on the floor and we talk about life and how much we care about each other, and we laugh and we share things we found online, and like we just like bullshit, right? Like we're just like spending time together, and that usually leads to sex where it doesn't feel like pressure because we're just focused on being together, versus me being in a bad mood because I'm in pain, and then we go to bed at night and my heating pad's right there and I'm like, come on, like you don't want to have sex? Like, so there's another lesson in there, which is what's leading to sex in your relationship. Because sometimes I think that men want spontaneity simply because it feels easy. It feels like they don't have to think about what leads up to it. They just want it to happen, and they just want to ignore like having to think about, you know, what's going to help her get there. Not that you have bad intentions, but it's just the easy way to think about it, right? Like it's kind of like the porn fantasy. Like it's just like they're in yoga and all of a sudden she's like, downward dog, okay, now come and fuck me. Like that doesn't usually happen in real life. Like spontaneous sex is not something that's going to happen most of the time for the majority of couples. It's just not. So you have to understand your partner. You have to learn where you're at. You have to know how to initiate in the ways that you each want sex to be initiated. And, this is something I asked Andrew too, and we talked about. I said, if it was easy for me to initiate, if we're just randomly in bed, how would you want me to do it? And then he was able to give me a couple of ideas. He didn't give me a ton. He gave me like 2. And I was like, I could work with that. Okay, cool. And they almost always work. So it's like for you to ask your partner questions and then be able to do exactly what they tell you, it's just so much easier than being like, you want to have sex tonight? No. You want to have sex tonight? No. You want to have sex tonight? No. Like, you got to understand, what are they looking for? And I hope that me, sharing this story and showing you it's not always the guy wanting to have sex more, like in this case, it's been me. The roles have been reversed, the typical roles. And as a woman and as a sexologist, that also hit my ego, where I'm like, okay, I see all these posts all the time about men who are chasing down their women. Past partners of mine chased me down, and the partner I love most out of all of them doesn't. What does this mean about me? What does this say about this relationship? And that was another thing that was just boggling my mind, and I had question after question. And I had to just talk to myself and be like, all right, you also had the worst health year of your life, like went through so much mentally and physically and emotionally, and you expect your sex life to be thriving. Like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't go together. So make sense of it and accept that, and I had to find acceptance around that and make sense of it for me to calm down about it, because it's true. Like what I've gone through and what my body was going through doesn't equate to a great sex life. It just doesn't. And that's okay, because now I have a reason why it's not equating. And often we have to find our reason. We have to sometimes make sense of why we're in the situation we're in. And making sense of it doesn't mean accept it forever, but it means, how can I show myself I'm not going crazy? How can I help myself calm down? How can I see my partner's point of view a bit more clearly? And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. I was talking to a client today, and we were talking about his language and how he approaches conversations about sex with his partner. And as we were talking about it and he was giving me examples, he's like, I'm realizing how harsh I am when I start these conversations. And I might use the right words, or the words I think I use are right, but the way I say it and the tone, it doesn't even matter what the words are anymore at that point, because of how I'm saying it to her. And he realized how important that is. And that's why coaching is so powerful, or just talking to someone who can really, truly listen to you, because they help give you a mirror to what you look like or sound like when you're communicating about something that frustrates you. And then you're like, wow, this is what my partner sees. Holy shit, this isn't attractive. This isn't kind. This isn't loving. And you're able to change your ways a bit faster, or see it from another perspective. And that actually happened with me before my fat transfer, because I was once again feeling a ton of pressure. I had the fat transfer coming up in like a month, and I went to this women's event and they were opening up about things. We went around in a circle and they were like, ask a question. And all of us women will help give our own answer to you and see if we could help you out. And I already asked a business question in the first circle. So this time I was like, fuck it. I'm going to ask about my boobs and I'm going to go for it. And this is so awkward because I don't know anyone here. And this is the most vulnerable thing ever. So when it comes to my turn, I'm like, I have a fat transfer to my boobs coming up in a month. And I feel guilty. I feel guilty because I don't want the insecurity to win. And I feel like getting this fat transfer is letting my insecurity win and it's taking away my power. And I feel like there's pressure to love my body and the way I look so that I can love myself and go into the surgery loving myself. And I also feel pressure because I feel like I have to get my boyfriend to love my body before this surgery too. So have any of you had an experience like this? And I don't know, can you just help me out or throw me anything that comes to mind you think could be helpful? And this one girl, everyone in the circle gave me something, which I was so appreciative of. And it was so nice and loving. And then this one girl's like, I want to talk to you after. And I'm like, okay. So she pulls me aside and she puts a blanket over us and she starts asking me question after question. And she asked all the right questions, dude. Like I was just like, who the fuck are you? Like, where'd you come from? She was like a fairy godmother and she is just like asking me questions like, tell me about the version of Stephanie who had boobs. Like, what was she like? Like, what did boobs do for you? Like, what did they make you feel? Were you excited? Did they excite you? They were fun, right? I bet they were fun. And she's kind of like helping me view boobs in a more positive way and get excited about my surgery. And like the whole takeaway was her giving me permission to get excited about this surgery and also reminding myself that I didn't have to love my appearance in order to love myself. She was like, you could still love you and not love the way you look. That's okay. And I think that's the most important thing here going into surgery is like, I mean, if you can't find a way to love your image in the mirror, that's okay. But you could still love who you are. And you could still do what you know you can do to get your confidence back if that's what it's going to take. And if it's a healthy route for you that you're ready for. And yeah, but question after question, I forget all the questions, but they were just leading up to these moments of realization of like, wow, like I can actually be excited for this and I could actually take the pressure off of myself and Andrew because we don't have to love how I look right now. Like Andrew doesn't have to find me sexy right now, like body-wise. Like he doesn't. That's okay. I don't. That's okay. And, it is a hard realization, but at the same time, it felt so freeing. And I came home and Andrew explained it like I was flying, like I floated into the room. I just floated into the room and I was telling him all about her. And he was like getting so excited hearing the story because I was like, blah, blah, blah. And then she asked me this and then she asked me that. And I just like said to him, like I realize how much pressure I've been putting on both of us and I don't want that. So there were so many questions. I mean, there were so many conversations like this too with Andrew over the last year of like me having realizations about my health or about my anxiety and this and that and sharing with him and him asking about it. I wasn't like just randomly dumping on him, but because all of our conversations revolved around health problems and challenges and me like getting, nothing out of a doctor consult that I paid $500 for, like just stressful things, like so many stressful conversations that took place over the easy, exciting, cool conversations. Like that is another form of pressure, right? Simply our conversations, the way they were balanced out, there was no balance. It was dominant, stress-related conversation. Even if I was starting to heal, it was still like, oh, this feels okay, but this is like getting worse, or this came out of nowhere. So now I don't know what to do about this. And him just constantly seeing me like this. Like, so when I was able to put everything together, I was like, wow, yeah, this doesn't make sense to be going through this and also have a thriving hot sex life. Like, it's kind of humorous now that I'm like thinking about it, even though it's frustrating and painful. It's like, it's still kind of funny because it's like, ugh, us little humans, like we just want everything to go right all the time. And we put so much pressure on us. And meanwhile, we're just on a tiny blue dot floating around in space. And it's just like, nothing really matters. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So yeah, that was that. And then we get to surgery number 2. April 2024. I got a fat transfer. Yeah, and I'm healing really well. I'm finding myself genuinely really happy. I did have to pull away from shrooms, doctor's orders. But I think it's a good test anyway to see how my body does adjusting. And then there's some other things where it's like, my diet is limited to, at this point, no caffeine. So I can have 1 decaf cup a day. No alcohol, no sugar, no junk food. No gluten still, no dairy. Dairy, I can have a little bit. So I can handle a little dairy and I'm fine. Overall, my gut feels so much better. My energy is feeling high for the first time in like a year and a half. So I have post-surgery, it's a bit lower. I've definitely had like high moments and then I need a nap for 2 hours. But yeah, I'm really starting to feel the effects of what I used to feel. And I was really excited to go to this doctor, Dr. Bednar. He was in North Carolina. So by the way, I had to travel for this surgery. And what a fat transfer surgery is liposuction from certain parts of your body to your breast, if it's a fat transfer to the breast. So when I had a consult with this doctor, Dr. Bednar, he gave me realistic expectations. He said, you're a tough case because you have a little body fat and you just had an explant. And explant patients are the hardest to predict the outcome because of the scar tissue from that surgery. So we don't know how the new fat cells will respond to that scar tissue. There might be some abnormalities in the symmetry or in how the final results look. But what I know I would do is build a foundation of fat cells. And with that healthy, good, strong foundation, if you had a second surgery, fat transfer, we would add volume. And that's where we can really add most of the volume that you want. And he's like, but, there's a rare case that you would be happy with one surgery. You might really like how they fill out and the size and the shape. He's like, the shape, the way I shape them might make all the difference for you. But there's no way of telling since you're an explant, post-explant patient. So I really appreciated his, just him being honest with me. I also told him I'd like to do some fat transfer to the face for a more youthful appearance instead of Botox. And he was like, no, that's not what that's for. I didn't understand. He's like, but you don't need fat transfer to the face. You're way too young. I'm not going to do that to you. So I really like doctors who give you clear expectations and also tell you no when you want certain procedures and they're not just out to make money. So that felt really good. His results looked amazing. Plus he specializes in women who are low BMI and post-explant. So he's like, most doctors would send you away and would turn you away because you have such little fat and you're post-explant. He's like, but this is my specialty, so you're in the right hands. So he made everything super clear and he made me feel really confident working with him. I even told him I'd like him to take fat from my inner thighs and he was like, no, that's not the best fat to take. I want to start with your outer thighs and possibly your low back. So I was like, my low back, like I feel like I have more in my inner thighs, but he's the doctor, so fuck it. I let him do whatever he thought was necessary. But it was interesting because when I did a consult with him before surgery, they take the the 3D imagery of your breasts, and he is able to have an assumption of how much fat he would be able to get from you and how much he could put in. The anesthesiologist was very clear that it would be pretty intense of a process because he has to go through each fat area 3 times to get as much fat as possible from each leg and then each lower back area. So he's like, it's a brutal recovery. You're going to have a lot of recovering, and then plus the boobs too, because we have to put him through the boobs. Then you have to take care of the stitching and like wear these compression pants for 6 weeks and follow all these rules for 3 months, the dry brushing and the rolling and the sleeping this way and the not eating or drinking this, or this. So, not lifting this, you can only do this type of exercise, take these types of medication if you need to. So it's so much more of a recovery process than the explant, in my opinion, but every woman's different. But yeah, liposuction so far has been a bitch. I'm pretty bruised, but I was so happy to see the results of his work. Like as soon as I looked at myself, I was like, oh, definitely it looked like I got ran over by a truck and still kind of does. But at the same time, I was like so happy. And Andrew was like, whoa, he did a really good job. So I talked to him on the phone, the doctor, and he was like, I was really proud of how much I got in you because, you're a little thing and there wasn't, much fat. He's like, but if you wanted a round 2, we wouldn't be able to give you a lot of volume, but it would come from your inner thighs for the second round. And we could give you a little more volume if that's what you wanted. But he's like, I got more in than I thought I could. So I was happy to hear that. I'm happy to see what they look like, bruised or not, but I still have that expectation of a possible second surgery because it takes 3 months for the swelling to go down. So there's a lot and the swelling is the water going down. So it's not the fat disappearing, it's the water that is pumped into you surgery to like create space to safely transfer fat cells. It's that water that slowly goes down. And that's why some women kind of go into a panic because they say that for fat transfer to the boobs, you can lose that water literally overnight. So you can go to bed with boobs that are like swollen and big, and then you wake up the next day and they're gone basically. And they're like, not gone, but they're like so much smaller. So women tend to get anxiety with this liposuction to the boobs because of this. Because it's kind of like you finally have boobs and then the swelling slowly goes down or quickly goes down and you kind of like freak out. So I'm doing my best to not get emotionally attached to the image of my breasts. I enjoy them right now. I have to wear sports bra 24/7, so I can't really fully enjoy them. Andrew and I together can't really enjoy them. We try having sex. I wear this compression garment that has a hole in the crotch, but even that is very difficult because my body is so bruised and swollen. So he's like, I don't know where to touch you. Like, how do we do this? But yeah, it's been, that was kind of the same, you blink, you wake up, you're in extreme pain, and walking has been a little difficult. Changing into different compression garments has been difficult, but now I could change by myself. I could shower by myself, which is amazing. So healing so far is going really well. I'm at the 2-week mark. So the first week was definitely the hardest, and Andrew helped me a lot. And yeah, week 2, I was telling him like, let me try this on my own. Let me try to do this. And he's like, oh shit. So yeah. So here we are. That is the experience. I gave you all the details. This is more the girl talk version. When girls talk, it's all about the details. They want to know the quotes. They want to know your thoughts. They want to know everything. So that's just how I communicate when I'm coming from a very vulnerable personal place. And I'm kind of painting a picture and just trying to remember the details of this journey. And yeah, part of me is like, I don't know, maybe it's time to write a book. But anyway, that is my breast implant illness story. At this point, Like I said, post-surgery, I'm just in pain from all the bruising, of course. I'm very uncomfortable wearing this tight thing every single day, not being able to take it off. So that kind of sucks. The bruises hurt. The stitching on my butt hurt when I sit, especially on the toilet. But it's getting easier every day. And I'm just a little sleepy, but I am getting motivation back. I feel like my stomach is able to handle so many more foods, which is amazing. I could go out to eat and I don't get bloated and feel pain. That's amazing. There's just so much that now I'm just telling my body how beautiful it is and how strong it is and how, holy shit, we did it. We got through all that. I really think, it's past the worst of everything and it's all up from here. I have amazing support. And just know that, like, I'm not one to say this will happen with every woman with breast implants, right? Like, obviously it doesn't. But it is coming out more and more that breast implant illness is really, really fucking with women's lives. So it's important to, if you have a partner, just, keep this in mind and keep on top of symptoms. I even shared with friends of mine who have implants, like, I don't want to scare you, but I just want you to be informed of what could happen and just make sure you're keeping an eye out on symptoms and don't let them escalate too much. If you have a feeling or if you just like follow your intuition, follow your gut and do research and know what to look out for so that you can avoid a lot of this, hopefully. Thank you for your support and for listening. If you made it this far, have an amazing morning, evening, or night, wherever you are in the world, and I'll talk to you soon.
I hope this episode helped you. If it did, I would love for you to leave me an iTunes review. It would mean the world to me. You can also screenshot your favorite episodes and tag me on Instagram @StephKanowski. And before I go, remember, your sex life is as good as you make it out to be. Until next time.